An Italian mafia capo named Dwight the General Manfredi, who works for the New York Inverness crime family, refuses to give up information on his employer, the Don of the family, Pete, and his son, Charles Chicky, and is sentenced to 25 years in a maximum security federal prison in Pennsylvania. There, despite the lonely, long years, Dwight maintains his loyalty to his employers, whom he saw as a family, and misses out on many opportunities to cut a deal for himself, which in turn costs him his real family. Unable to deal with everything, Dwight's wife, Marie, divorces him, and a few years after that, enraged by her father's continuous absence from her life, his young daughter, Tina, cuts all contact with him. Despite the great and painful personal loss, Dwight continues to show loyalty to the life he had chosen and serves out his sentence. However, as the years pass, the harsh reality and the weight of his predicament start to weigh down on Dwight, and he realizes how long, isolating, and brutal 25 years of containment can be. As his discharge date finally arrives, Dwight is escorted to the prison gate. He wonders about reuniting with the family he has left and hopes they appreciate his years of sacrifice. At age 75, Dwight steps out, ready to greet his comrades, but finds only a driver waiting. Dwight assumes the Invernesses must be busy preparing a welcome and begins his journey with that hope. During the ride, Dwight becomes fascinated with how different and modern the streets look and tries to take in every detail, while realizing that the world has definitely moved on without him. Then, the driver takes Dwight to a mansion in Long Island and escorts him inside to meet everyone.
There he is. Nice place you got here.
With the greetings out of the way, the men proceed to get down to business, but Dwight is taken aback by changes in the hierarchy. Then, as the discussion continues, Dwight reminds the men of what he did for them.
Not exactly the welcome I was expecting.
Business first.
As Dwight argues for his place, Chicky bluntly asks him to move to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Despite being hurt by such dismissal, Dwight tries to reason with the Don for old time's sake, but it all goes sideways.
They told you where to go. That's it.
Is this how to treat a man who sacrificed 1/3 of his life for the family? Dwight walks out of the mansion and the world the Invernesses built at the expense of his freedom, assuring himself that he will survive this betrayal and will find his place in the world. Hence, fueled by the desperate hope to find a new home, Dwight travels to Tulsa with nothing but a single suitcase to show for his life. There, at the airport, Dwight meets a young cab driver named Tyson Mitchell, who drives him to town. However, during the ride, Dwight tries to take in everything he sees, asking his driver numerous questions that the young man doesn't have answers for.
What kind of business?
They're none of your business kind of business.
Someone did make that, Dwight. The men continue chatting, but due to their different lingos, they confuse one another as if speaking different languages. Then, Dwight sees a marijuana dispensary store from afar and asks Tyson to stop the car. Inside the dispensary, Dwight makes a few observations. Then, after knocking the guard out, Dwight meets the owner of the store, Bodie, who is confused by Dwight's unusual request.
I just knocked your guard out cold, and you think I'm a CPA?
Impressed by how profitable the business is, Dwight tries to find out more about it. Dwight subtly threatens Bodie, who hesitates to reveal the safe, convinces him to open it, and is even more impressed to learn that there is $500,000 inside it.
But in exchange, I'll protect you from the gangs.
What gangs?
And the law.
Then, Dwight takes a few stacks of money and proceeds to leave. Outside, Dwight hires Tyson as his driver for a generous weekly salary, gives him some money, and orders him to buy him a new black Navigator.
Go to the hotel. Stop with that gangster.
Later that evening, Dwight goes to a local bar, meets the owner Mitch, and makes friends with a couple of other locals. The next morning, Tyson comes to pick Dwight up and informs him that the dealership refused to sell him the Navigator. Furious, Dwight pays the dealership a visit and speaks to the owner, Donnie.
I'm not following.
Well, follow this. This wasn't necessary.
The duo then heads to the weed dispensary, where Dwight gives Bodie a security camera and orders him to install it. He then advises him to launder his money instead of keeping it at the store where the feds can find it. Later, Tyson drives Dwight to the bar. There, Dwight and Mitch get to know each other and realize that they have more in common than they thought.
My parents are proud immigrants that named me after the greatest general of the 20th century.
Later, Dwight meets an ATF agent named Stacy Beal and has an anonymous one-night stand with her. The next morning, Stacy finds out Dwight's age, freaks out, and leaves. A couple of hours later at work, Stacy gets the shock of her life.
Our friends at the FBI have alerted us to a new visitor, the white man Freddy.
In just a few days, Dwight manages to find a profitable business prospect, make acquaintances and friendships, and comfortably settle into his exile. One morning in his hotel room, Dwight spends hours searching for contact information for Tina, whom he hasn't talked to or seen in almost 2 decades. Finds it, but is denied access due to a lack of a credit card. Disappointed, Dwight goes to a local cafe to get some coffee. Elsewhere, shocked to her core by what she learns, Stacy calls a colleague to learn more about Dwight.
Did a 25-year stretch rather than talk.
Well, you gotta admire that, right?
Meanwhile, Dwight takes a walk around town, enjoying his freedom to do so, and learns about the center of the universe.
And nobody outside of it can hear a sound.
No shit.
In New York, Vince returns from the hospital after being treated for his broken jaw and shares his frustration with Chicky, who agrees to talk to his father about punishing Dwight. In Tulsa, Dwight tries to get a debit card from the bank but fails as he doesn't have a renewed ID. Elsewhere, a ranch hand named Armand discovers Dwight's presence in Tulsa and freaks out.
Who am I kidding? He's here to f***ing kill me.
Then, Tyson takes Dwight to the DMV, where he cheats on his written exam and bribes his way into receiving a learner's permit. The duo then returns to the bank and completes the debit card request. As the duo leaves the bank, Dwight receives a call from Chicky, who talks to him about Vince.
$100,000 to do it?
Are you kidding me?
Later, Stacy visits Dwight at his hotel room and reveals her identity as an agent, making her stance clear.
What's an ex-felon, former Mafia capo doing in Tulsa?
Elsewhere, Tyson's father, Mark, grows increasingly concerned about his son's association with a known criminal and advises him to drop everything and go to college to no avail. Then, as per Dwight's request, Bodie introduces him to his weed supplier, Jimmy. And just as he promised,
Drive a hard bargain, but fair. Deal.
he manages to work out a better deal. Meanwhile, at the Mitchell's residence, Mark stays up all night waiting for Tyson. And despite being relieved to see his son safely returning, he wonders what he's doing out in the wee hours of the night and becomes terrified of the possibilities. The next day, Dwight receives his debit card, uses it to find the information he needs on his daughter, and calls her.
Listen, I'm sorry, but she doesn't want to talk to you.
The wounds he carries from missing out on Tina's childhood bleed afresh, and Dwight is devastated. The confident man who has spent the last few days boldly taking over the small town suddenly feels helpless and trapped in the decisions he made a quarter of a century ago, and he's heartbroken to no end. One morning, Dwight rises early, takes his own glass cup to the coffee shop, and spends some time enjoying his coffee. Then, in hopes of preparing for his driver's test, Dwight drives with Tyson next to him. Later, after discovering nitrous oxide as a party drug, Dwight approaches Mitch with an attractive deal.
He says one of those tanks makes about 350 balloons at $10 a pop.
The next morning, as Tyson and Dwight drive to Dwight's driver's test, Tyson once again shares that instead of going to college, he wants to establish himself in Dwight's criminal world, but his boss tries to change his mind.
I'll be smart about it.
Wanna be smart, go to college.
Unbeknownst to the duo, Armand tracks them to the DMV, remains hidden, and waits for the perfect opportunity to strike. Then Dwight is joined by a timid driving instructor named Paul and starts his test and does well until he reaches a stoplight.
Kid down!
As a bleeding Paul shrieks and whimpers in fear, Dwight reacts instinctively and chases his attacker. After a few minutes of a high-speed chase, Armand manages to get away, leaving Dwight simmering in anger. Then, to the horror of Paul, instead of rushing to the hospital, Dwight uses his blood to write down the make, model, and partial license plate number of his attacker. Moments later, police swarm the area and take Dwight in for questioning.
You know we ran your name through the system.
And you know I'm a Leo.
Later, after learning of the case, Stacy visits Dwight at the station, uses her rank to free him, and the duo has dinner and gets to know each other better before spending the night. The next day, suspecting Vince might have had something to do with the attack, Dwight calls Chicky.
Just as a pure f***ing business decision, I gotta be out of my mind to take you out.
Later, Dwight visits Paul at the hospital and hands him 10 grand for all his pain and suffering. The near-death experience forces Dwight to reconsider his acquaintance with Tyson, meet with him, and, after giving him his severance pay, proceeds to fire him. However, still fascinated by Dwight's world, Tyson refuses to be fired and continues working for the general at his own risk.
This is your choice.
Then, following Paul's tip, Dwight and Tyson find the shooter's car, abandoned and half-torched. Then, after searching it thoroughly, Dwight is led to a local ranch named Fenario, meets the owner, Margaret, and soon identifies the culprit on his own. Dwight follows Armand to his house and prepares to kill him. However, once there, he sees Armand's son running out to meet his father, has a change of heart, and leaves. A few days later, Dwight ambushes Armand at his house, demands to know who hired him, but is confused by his answer.
You came here to kill me! What the f was I supposed to do? Wait! I got a wife! Got kids!
Then, Armand explains that Pete had tried to have Dwight killed in prison, fearing he would give him up, and adds that he had moved to Tulsa 2 decades ago, as he wanted to leave the criminal life behind. Dwight is shocked by Pete's betrayal, decides to spare Armand's life, and instead hires him. Then, as Dwight proceeds to leave the residence, he runs into Armand's wife, Clara, who is shocked to see him and rushes to Armand to check on him. A few days later, Mitch gets multiple tanks of nitrous oxide, which Bodie and Tyson sell at a music festival, but they meet some resistance from members of a local biker gang named Black McAdams.
Who the fuck said you could set up here?
The parking lot?
The next day, Tyson hands the wad of cash they made at the party and excitedly narrates how successful and profitable their night was. Dwight then tips Tyson and gives him the diamond pinky ring Pete had given him as a show of his appreciation. Meanwhile, the biker gang's boss, Colin Waltrip, becomes furious to hear that someone else has disrespected his territory.
Who are we if we can't protect what's ours? You've left us all exposed.
At home, a concerned Mark questions Tyson's pinky ring.
That a real diamond type?
Of course it is.
Then, Dwight calls his sister Joanne and is devastated to hear that his younger brother Joey has terminal cancer. This news stirs up the profound regret inside him, which reminds him of the years he missed out on his family and breaks his heart. Later that evening, while Tyson and Bodie sell the laughing gas, the biker gangs ambush them, steal their tanks and money, and beat them up. Elsewhere, after learning of Armand's criminal past and his acquaintance with Dwight, his wife Clara searches for a house in Florida so that they can escape the horror and start over. Meanwhile, Armand receives a call from Dwight, who orders him to meet him later so that they can confront the biker gang. On the other side of town, seeing Tyson's bruises, Mark freaks out and is devastated to realize that the son he has worked hard to raise and send to college is going down the wrong path and has an explosive fight with Tyson.
How was that?
Tyson, you got 5 seconds to get your ass and that out of my sight.
That was way out of line, Tyson. That evening, Dwight orders Mitch to stay back so that he won't violate his parole and get in trouble and wait for his crew to gather. Then, as the team prepares to leave, to the shock of everyone, Mark appears.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Let's hit it, Mark.
Come on!
At the music festival, Dwight waits until the festival is over, ambushes the gang with his men, and takes back the tanks and all of their money. Later, the team heads to the bar and quietly revels in their success. Moments later, Mark refuses to accept payment for his participation and proceeds to leave.
I'm afraid this isn't the bonding moment you think it is, son.
Dwight then pays his men and heads to his hotel room to nurse his wounds and rest. There, Dwight receives a call from Joan, who informs him that Joey's condition is getting worse and gives him a chance to say goodbye.
Hey, Joey. Yeah, I'm sorry you're not feeling good.
After bidding farewell to his younger brother, Dwight cries for hours, mourning the loss and regretting the years he stole away from his family. At dawn, Armand returns home, and as if the night's action has brought out the violence in him, he fights with his annoying neighbor and announces that he's not leaving Tulsa. A few days later, Dwight travels to New York for Joey's funeral and is welcomed by Joan. Then, he takes a few moments to bid farewell to Joey and says a little prayer for him. Then, Dwight sees Tina from afar for the first time in 2 decades, but is disheartened to see her anger and steps out. Then, Joan proudly informs Dwight that Tina had studied horticulture in college, graduated, owns her own business, and is raising her twins with her adoring husband Emery, who works in finance. In Tulsa, hoping to retaliate before the general returns, Cowlin's bodyguard Carson approaches a couple of dirty cops.
You hear what I just said? Big man's not happy.
Later, as Tyson drives around town, he calls his girlfriend and proudly tells her that he's getting his act together and has even moved out of his parents' house. But before he can bask in the girl's admiration, a squad car stops him. The police quickly search Tyson and the car and find some marijuana cigarettes, which they use as a reason to throw him in jail. In New York, after the funeral, Dwight takes his family out to lunch at a 4-star hotel. As they sit around a table, Dwight is introduced to Emery.
Well, I'm just saying you could have called and sought my blessing before you married my daughter.
Outraged, Tina responds on behalf of her husband and lashes out at her father. Hoping to calm down the situation, Dwight gives a toast in remembrance of Joey and calls on his family to enjoy the present. Unimpressed, Tina walks out, followed by her husband. Later, after learning that Pete isn't feeling well, Dwight goes to the hospital to visit him. But there, Vince tries to provoke him, until Chicky and his men, Nico and Goody, interfere.
Vince.
Let's go.
Chicky, take it.
In Tulsa, the dirty cops and Carson kidnap Bodie, and after taking Tyson's phone, they learn the name of the boss. Meanwhile, Armand's colleague at the ranch, Roxy, who's Carson's girlfriend and a member of the biker gang, learns about Armand's involvement in the nitrous oxide shenanigan and casually warns him to choose his acquaintances well.
Why don't you Google him? And then let me know how funny you think it is.
Later, the cops take a terrified Bodie to the bar and try to question Mitch.
We need a word.
No, thanks.
In New York, Dwight goes to Tina's shop to speak to her, but gets a cold treatment. Dwight endures through Tina's anger and tries to talk to her. Then, Tina shares how hard it was growing up without him.
Nico, the package Bugliosi was the only one.
Then, she suddenly gets emotional and reveals that when she was a kid, under the cover of checking up on the family, Nico had come home late one night and raped her. Enraged out of his mind, Dwight frantically searches for Nico, finds him playing cards with Chicky, Vince, and Goody, and, to their horror, beats him to death. In Tulsa, Roxy, who happens to be an ATF informant, meets with Stacy and her colleague Doug to tell them details of the latest war over the laughing gas. Alarmed at the mention of Dwight's name, Stacy tries to deter Roxy from implicating Dwight, but Doug is curious and suggests they should alert the FBI to the capo's activities.
Okay, first of all, your job is to get information on Keelan Waltrip, not bullshit Italian.
In New York, in the aftermath of Nico's murder, the rest of the gang, who had no idea about Nico's transgressions, discuss how to handle the matter.
If you were half the man he was, this would have never happened.
Meanwhile, after the murder, Dwight returns to Tina's shop and admits what he did.
He's gone.
Dwight then returns to Tulsa, is picked up by Tyson at the airport, and learns about everything that transpired in his absence. Then, the duo goes to visit Bodie at the weed store, but are disappointed to see that the shop is closed, with the owner nowhere to be found. At the ATF office, Stacy tries everything to deter Doug from alerting the FBI about Dwight's activities, but fails miserably. Is Stacy trying to protect herself or Dwight? At the Fenario Ranch, on behalf of the biker gang, Roxy asks Armand to arrange a meeting with Dwight. Later, Tina calls Dwight and informs him about the silent calls she's getting, which infuriates him, and he promises to get to the bottom of it. Hence, he calls Goody in the wee hours of the night and asks him to visit him in Tulsa. The next day, Dwight meets Stacy, who warns him to stay low.
You know, it's generally frowned upon for a federal agent to consort with a known felon.
After a few days of investigation, the FBI takes Bodie in for questioning and raids his weed store. However, they are disappointed to find it ransacked with no trace of evidence. In New York, hoping to stay on the good side of his bosses, Goody informs Pete and Chicky that Dwight wants to talk and offers to travel to Tulsa on their behalf. Despite Chicky's hesitation, Pete agrees with Dwight's request and sends Goody to check on his oldest friend. In Tulsa, Dwight accepts the biker gang's requests and meets with Cowlin and Mitch.
You're overplaying your hand.
When I play my hand, you won't see it coming.
Then, as Dwight's men gather at the bar and discuss how to handle the biker gangs, Bodie returns. Then, to the utter delight of Bodie, Dwight and Mitch reveal that they were the ones who ransacked and robbed his store of the products and money, anticipating an FBI raid, and give him his products back.
Hey, don't you fucking kiss me.
Then, as his team gathers around the table for dinner, Dwight stands back and watches them with utter delight and appreciation, realizing that he now has a new family. The next morning, Dwight is shocked to hear that his favorite horse, named Pilot, that roams the streets of the city is about to be put down, rushes to buy it, and hires a local woman named Spencer to take care of it.
You got my number if there's a problem, right?
You got it.
Later, Stacy calls Dwight with an unusual proposal.
You tell him you want to buy some guns, he's got an arsenal, he'll be fucking gone.
You're seriously not going to help me out?
I can't.
On the other side of Tulsa, enraged by his meeting with Dwight, Solon orders Carson to shoot up Mitch's bar as a warning. Meanwhile, Dwight goes to the Fenario Ranch to check on Pilot and starts getting to know Margaret better. In New York, as he gets home that night, Emery is ambushed and severely injured. Later that night, Carson arrives at the bar and bombards it with multiple rounds of shots. Dwight and Mitch recover from the surprise quickly, defend themselves well, and kill Carson. Dwight and Mitch take off Carson's biker jacket and bury the body in the desert. Meanwhile, in New York, Pete has a meeting with his doctor on video call and gets some good news.
You do that, then no reason why you shouldn't live another 15 years.
Why does Chicky look disappointed to hear that? The next morning, Dwight is informed about Emery's attack, becomes enraged, and asks Tina to move her family to Tulsa so that he can protect them, but fails to convince her. Elsewhere, as Cowlin and his men wonder where Carson is, they receive his jacket in a package and become frustrated. Devastated by the news, Roxy calls Stacy.
They murdered him. He never came home.
Who?
Then, Armand and Tyson pick Goody up from the train station and bring him to the bar, where Dwight welcomes him with hostile questions about Emery's attack and Nico.
I don't know anything about that.
You think it's him?
Chicky? Why now? Why would he do that?
Later, Stacy meets Roxy, comforts her, and asks her to bring her something incriminating on Cowlin so that she can arrest him. Meanwhile, Goody calls his bosses and updates them on all he's learned about Dwight.
Still hot about the Nico situation, and now he's riled up with the son-in-law getting attacked.
That night, Stacy questions Dwight about Carson's murder.
I could arrest you right now. You know that?
What are you waiting for?
Desperate to avenge her boyfriend's death, Roxy sneaks into Cowlin's office, steals his laptop, and tries to find some incriminating evidence on him. However, Cowlin soon catches her and calmly strangles her to death. The next morning, when Roxy fails to show up to her meeting with Stacy, the agent calls her number. A few days later, Dwight shares a new idea with Bodie, who, after some hesitation, accepts it.
A license to launder it, too.
There you go.
Then Bodie makes a confession, which pleasantly surprises Dwight.
Holy shit. That real?
In New York, with the tension between him and his father growing, Chicky shares his troubles with a priest at the local church. That night, in New York, while helping his father bathe, Chicky gets into an argument with him.
This white bullshit stuck to seat.
Then, in a horrific twist of events, Chicky drowns his father in the bath and murders him. In Tulsa, after accepting her request for a date, Dwight goes to dinner with Margaret, and the duo gets to know each other better. Meanwhile, in New York, the Invernizzi family gathers around in Pete's house to show their support, and Vince checks on Chicky.
Anything I can do? Can help me get this family back on fucking track.
The sad news reaches Dwight in Tulsa, and despite all the betrayals and their recent differences, he is heartbroken to lose his oldest friend, whom he had considered a brother. One day, Dwight and Mitch take their reluctant team target shooting so that they can learn to defend themselves well.
I had never even held a gun before.
I'm trying to save your ass.
Meanwhile, an enraged Stacy visits Cowlin at his place and demands to know where Roxy is. Then, Dwight, Bodie, and Mitch meet with Jimmy and finalize their business plan for the casino. In New York, at Pete's funeral reception, Vince and Chicky make plans on how to make a move on the general.
The decision's already been made. Thank you.
It seems all the codes of honor of the Invernizzis have been buried with Pete. In the ATF office, Stacy and Doug meet FBI agents to discuss the recent crime spree. Then, Stacy shares that Cowlin has a large amount of money in a secret account, convinces the FBI to search for it, and uses it to get him off the street. Elsewhere, Tyson collects the last of his stuff from his parents' house and leaves the nest for good.
I'm gonna be all right. God bless you, son.
On the other side of town, the ATF raids Cowlin's bar but is disappointed to learn that he and his right-hand man, Robbie, are nowhere to be found. But as they continue their investigation, they discover an account with more than $8 million associated with Cowlin.
Internet party platforms, crypto, credit cards, real estate.
Elsewhere, with the feds closing in on him, Cowlin calls the dirty cops and gives them stern orders. Then, as Tyson drives Dwight, the cops stop them and proceed to arrest Dwight, who quickly puts them in their place.
We know where to find you.
That goes both ways.
The next day, Chicky calls Dwight and, with feigned sincerity, gives him an impassioned speech about moving forward.
And the Oscar goes to Chicky and Venezia.
Fucking piece of shit.
Elsewhere, unable to stand all of Armand's shady actions, Clara confronts her husband and gives him an ultimatum that if he is not willing to leave the criminal life behind and move out of state, she will divorce him. Meanwhile, Stacy meets Dwight in front of his hotel and updates him on the investigation.
I finally got the FBI to get off this, so just move on.
Then, as the duo discusses this, Cowlin and Robbie show up out of nowhere and start shooting at them. Stacy jumps in front of Dwight, returns fire, and kills Robbie, but she is injured in the process. In 1997 in Brooklyn, Chicky and Vince tie up one of their men named Ripple, suspected of skimming money, to a radiator in an abandoned building and beat him up for his transgressions. Then, while Armand begs them to stop the brutality, Chicky brands Ripple with a potato masher while screaming obscenities. Then, a desperate Armand calls Dwight, details the ordeal, and begs him to come and put a stop to the madness. Dwight rushes over, stops the power-drunk young men, and attempts to free Ripple, to no avail. Unfortunately, soon, the hot potato masher unexpectedly causes a fire, and chaos ensues. Dwight tells everyone to leave and stays behind to free the desperate Ripple. However, he soon realizes that the task is impossible, and, hoping to save Ripple from burning to death, shoots and kills him. Then, as he runs out of the building, he's arrested by the police, soon convicted, and sentenced to 25 years. In the present, the police arrive at the scene, take in a bloodied Dwight for questioning, while Stacy is taken to the hospital and rushed into surgery. At the police station, while the FBI questions Dwight about what he knows of the incident, he's rescued by a young real estate lawyer sent by Bodie. Then, concerned about Stacy's well-being, Dwight rushes to the hospital to see her. There, Dwight profusely thanks Stacy for saving his life, and as the duo discusses the ordeal, he learns that Cowlin is a millionaire, and hence can flee the country and set up operations anywhere in the world. Then, as he processes this, he's distressed to learn that Stacy will probably be fired from her job once her acquaintance with him is discovered. Elsewhere, Cowlin gathers his men and prepares them to fight his war.
Ours will not stop until we cut him out with a...
Then, while the scary security guards Dwight hired lurk around, Dwight, Armand, and Tyson visit the Invernizis at their hotel.
You got 3 seconds to make up your mind. Smart.
Fucking piece of shit.
Dwight then orders his men to escort Chicky and Vince to the airport and walks away. As the tension increases with the biker gang, Dwight gathers his men at the bar, introduces them to Goody, and gives them an impassioned speech.
You can't go back once you've started this damn journey.
Later, Dwight informs Bodie of Cowlin's account and orders him to steal all of the money. Elsewhere, Mitch and his elderly father discuss Dwight.
Seemed like a good man. Straight shooter.
Then, Bodie uses his expertise to empty out Cowlin's account, which confuses the FBI and utterly enrages Cowlin. A few days later, hoping to make up for all the trouble he caused her, including the potential loss of her employment, Dwight sends Stacy a flash drive that accesses a $1 million account, along with a thank you note. Later that night, as Dwight and his team hang out at the bar, Cowlin and his men ambush them. As if rehearsed, Dwight and his team react synchronously and take them all out. Then, Dwight kills Cowlin.
Still think I overplayed my hand.
3 months later, Tina visits Dwight with her twins, Cody and Ryan, and they all go to the ranch where Dwight introduces Tina to Margaret while the kids enjoy riding a horse.
Tonight is the grand opening or reopening of this nightclub that I'm putting together.
As the moment Dwight had dreamed about for decades comes true, he suddenly feels complete, and he rejoices. On Cloud 9, Dwight spends the rest of the day hanging out with Tina and his grandchildren. Ow. Such a wholesome moment. Elsewhere, once she's released from the hospital, in light of her acquaintance with Dwight, Stacy is suspended from work for 6 months.
There is one condition, however.
That night, at the grand opening of the casino, as the new bar fills up with excited locals, Dwight and his men sit back and enjoy the fruit of their hard work. While Mitch sings with his band, Dwight spends the evening by Tina's side, and later, the duo has a father-daughter dance for the first time ever. Unfortunately, this beautiful moment is interrupted when Dwight is called outside, where Stacy awaits him.
This flash drive. Attempted bribery of a federal agent.
Tina quickly follows her father outside, sees him getting arrested, and is utterly terrified, as flashbacks of the same event from her childhood flood her.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
We are acquainted, right, Stacy?
Yes, we are.
Jury selection begins next Tuesday. I want a jury seated as soon as possible.
In jail, Dwight meets a terrified man named Harlan, who shares that he's been charged with an energy scam after he gambled away the $12.5 million grant money he had received from the government for his wind farm. Dwight takes note of this, and seeing how terrified the man is of going to prison, he gives him some advice.
You keep eyeballing me, I'll you up.
It's the quiet ones you gotta worry about.
You been in prison before?
Briefly.
In the casino, the team and Tina are devastated by what happened, are confused about how to proceed, and sit around discussing what to do. Luckily, citing that he's the only one who took the same oath as Dwight, back in the day, Goody steps up, appoints Mitch as his underboss, and tries to get things back on track.
I ride with the man every day, so who's closer?
Serious? I'm Italian.
Then, a couple of days later, Dwight is arraigned, and the prosecutor requests that he remain in custody until the trial. Seeing his whimpering public defender, Dwight dismisses him, represents himself, and assures the court that since he has businesses and ties to the community, he won't skip town. Hence, a $3 million bail is set, which Tina posts. At the ATF, Doug informs Stacy that Dwight is out on bail.
I'll have the FBI keep an eye on him. Don't worry about it.
Oh, don't worry.
In New York, with Dwight setting up an empire elsewhere and now Goody changing sides, rumors start flying around implying a fractured Invernizzi family. Soon, a member of the Invernizzi family named Jerry shares this with Chicky, Vince, and their crew, and they try to strategize a solution.
There's chatter about infighting. Questions about what happened to Pete.
At the casino, the team welcomes their boss, warmly and excitedly toasts his return. Then, Mitch introduces Dwight to his cousin Bigfoot.
So what's your specialty?
Psychology.
Psychology.
And impressed by the new guy's attitude, the general hires him on the spot. Then, missing pilot, Dwight heads to the ranch to check on him and runs into Margaret, who invites him to a charity benefit organized by the biggest medical marijuana supplier in the state, Cal Thresher. As Dwight leaves the ranch, he's once again followed by the FBI. Annoyed and hoping to put a stop to it once and for all, Dwight gets out of the car and proceeds to speak to them, and is shocked to realize that they are following him in hopes of protecting Stacy from his wrath. Utterly disappointed, Dwight breaks into Stacy's apartment that night and waits to talk to her.
I have respect for you than almost anyone I've ever met.
The next morning, Dowd and Tyson visit Bodie at the new high-tech weed store, which will soon be opened. And the general shares his new exciting business idea.
Built wind turbines. There's a tongue twister. Because the owner is going away for stealing the subsidies.
Then, Dwight sends his men to his tailor so that they can prepare for the fundraising dinner that night. There, the men arrive looking sharp, and after Dwight informs everyone that this is a great business opportunity and warns them to be on their best behavior, they head inside. However, once they are inside, Dwight notices how drunk Armand is, pulls him aside, and talks to him.
My wife left and took the kids. Now I'm stuck trying to sell the house.
Hoping to make a good impression and maintain a professional image, Dwight sends Armand home before being introduced to Cal, which doesn't go well at all.
Why? What happened?
I just forgot I got a lot of things to do.
Annoyed, Dwight and his men leave the fundraising function. Meanwhile, Chicky calls Goody, and hoping to send a message to the defector, executes Jerry. Goody hears the senseless shots on the phone and becomes devastated. Later, Cal calls the boss of the Kansas mob, Bill Bevilacqua, and informs him of Dwight's activities. A few days later, Dwight and Tina check out a beautiful mansion for sale, and after making sure that it's well suited for children, they make an offer. Elsewhere, one of Bill's men, who was sent to Tulsa to spy on Dwight's operations, returns and informs his boss that everything they heard is true, and that Dwight is making money with his numerous operations.
Trespassing sounds like a simple word, but it's bad.
On the other side of town, Cal contacts the U.S. Attorney Dylan McGrath, who owes him many favors for all he's contributed to his campaign, and talks to him about Dwight.
I'll personally oversee it.
Good.
At the ranch, Armand confides his financial trouble to Tyson, who tries to find ways to help him.
I need real money.
Now, look, what if I told you I know a way we can get about 100 of them?
In court, to the shock of the judge, Dwight decides to defend himself.
If the jury finds you guilty, you could receive up to 10 years in prison.
I know.
Meanwhile, Tina starts to doubt her decision to uproot her whole life, calls Joanne for advice, and is glad to hear her aunt is planning to come out to Tulsa to help her settle down. Elsewhere, believing Dwight is operating on behalf of the Invernizzi family, Bill calls Chicky.
You know why I'm calling?
I know why you're not calling.
At the casino, Bodie gives Dwight tips on how to choose the best juror, while the rest of the crew sneak out to Donnie's car dealership and steal catalytic converters from all the cars parked on the lot. Later, Dwight visits Harlan at the prison to discuss the wind turbines.
Why? Because I'm a businessman.
Later that night, a concerned Joanne arrives in Tulsa and visits her brother in his hotel room.
How long do you plan on staying?
As long as you'll have me.
The next afternoon at the casino, Donnie informs Dwight about the robbery and asks him for help.
Did you call the cops?
The police have bigger fish to fry.
Dwight thinks about his predicament for the next few days, and after considering everything he stands to lose if the trial goes south and hoping to work out a deal, visits Dylan at his office.
No jail time.
Well, you're not exactly in a very strong bargaining position.
Disappointed, Dwight tries to figure out how to move forward, and in Dylan's moment of distraction, notices a message from Cal and is shocked to realize Dylan is colluding with Cal. Hence, knowing that any effort at negotiations will be in vain, he leaves the office, thinking of his next move. Meanwhile, as per Dwight's orders, Mitch goes to Donnie's car dealership to return the stolen converters and test the waters of the car dealership business.
Because if you were ever interested in selling, I might know somebody who presents you with a proposition.
A few days later, the renovated high-tech weed store holds a party for its grand opening, and Dwight, his team, and the locals excitedly attend and enjoy themselves thoroughly. Later, as Tyson drives Dwight to the hotel, he gets a tip that it's surrounded by the media, waiting to speak to his boss, and instead takes Dwight to his parents' house for the night.
Thank you very much for allowing me to stay in your daughter's room.
Meanwhile, Chicky calls Goody to scold him for defecting and discusses the current power struggle. In the next few days, as the trial date approaches, Dwight prepares himself and holds mock trials with his men and learns how to present himself well. One evening, while hanging out with Mitch, Goody receives a call from Chicky and carefully receives the message without tipping anyone off.
Who was that? One of them robocalls.
A few days later, Armand meets with Clara and her divorce lawyer for negotiations and is devastated to learn that, on top of being forced to leave the marital house and pay a hefty child support, he will only have supervised visitations with his kids and tries to fight, to no avail.
I'm getting hammered at every point here.
Elsewhere, at the mansion, as Tina and Joanne decorate Manfredi's new residence, they meet with the local vice chair of the homeowners association named Wesley. The next morning, Dwight wakes up early, prepares, and as he leaves for his trial, he meets Wesley, who gives him a fine for his improper handling of the garbage receptacle.
Pay the penalty and get on with their lives.
Yeah, I've had enough appeals, so don't worry about it.
Elsewhere, Armand receives an unexpected call from Cal and goes to his ranch to meet with him. There, after a few minutes of getting to know each other, sympathizing with Armand's financial woes, Cal gives him wads of cash, and the desperate man accepts it, hoping to settle some matters as soon as possible. There's no such thing as a free lunch, Armand. Be careful. In court, Dwight confidently lists all the things Stacy had done for him, including taking a shot for him, and argues that the money was not at all a bribe and was just his way of showing how grateful he is for her. Wow, Dwight makes one hell of a lawyer. Then, as the jury deliberates, Dwight gets a call from Goody, who informs him that Bill has come to visit him and rushes to meet him at the casino.
You don't even want to offer me a taste of what you're trying to build here.
I really don't have anything to offer you, Bill.
But it doesn't go well. Later, the verdict is in, and as everyone holds their breath with anticipation, it's read in court.
Not guilty.
That night, at his celebration party at the casino, Dwight is informed by Goody that Carl has returned with a proposal and goes out to meet him. However, just as Carl proceeds to attack Dwight, Bigfoot and Goody murder him on the spot. What an asset Goody turned out to be. Dwight then calmly returns to the party and dances the night away with Margaret, whom he spends the night with at her ranch, while Tyson and Bigfoot dump Carl's body in front of Bill's estate, enraging the Kansas City boss to no end. That night, shaken by the events of the night, Tyson spends the night at his parents' house. The next morning, seeing Mark having trouble with his van, Tyson offers to give him money, which the proud plumber refuses. Elsewhere, a furious Bill calls Chicky.
Can't even give him a proper funeral.
You didn't kill him.
Does that matter?
In Tulsa, Dwight admits to Tyson that he's second-guessing his decision to refuse Bill's proposal to work together, but the young man assures him that he did the right thing. Later, at the weed store, Dwight informs the crew about the recent attempt on his life, which enrages Bodie. Seeing this, Tyson pulls Bodie aside and calms him down. Meanwhile, Cal and his partner, the leader of the Chinese triad, Jackie Mings, get into an argument about Jackie growing heroin on Cal's land. And despite Jackie explaining that it's very profitable, Cal orders him to get rid of it. At the ranch, Cal visits Armand, and after handing him more money, feigns concern and checks on his family before casually asking him about Dwight's whereabouts. In New York, as Nikki, Vince, and Chicky gather to discuss how to handle Bill, Chicky makes a chilling remark.
He died, your father. Exactly. I mean, you should have seen him in that bathtub. Legs kicking like crazy.
In Tulsa, Tyson drives Dwight, Mitch, and Bodie to the wind farm in Galena, where they meet Jimmy, who introduces them to Medhot and his son, Ahanu, who requests 20% of all energy produced to be diverted to tribal areas where it's most needed, along with 20% of all the weed profits, in exchange for allowing the farm to be built on tribal land. After learning that Cal has also made an offer on the weed farm and some private discussion, Dwight and his men agree to the terms, and a deal is struck. Meanwhile, Goody notices a mysterious car circling his house numerous times and becomes suspicious. Hence, he waits for the perfect time, and as soon as the driver stops, he ambushes him. However, he's soon shocked to realize it's just a lost Uber Eats driver and lets him go. Later, Dwight and Mitch head to the car dealership to discuss a possible deal with Donnie, who promises to stick around and show them the business once they purchase it, and they decide to make an offer. In New York, while Chicky is passed out, Vince picks up a call from Bill and makes arrangements.
Makes me think maybe I put too much weight in the relevance of New York nowadays. Where is Nero?
Elsewhere, as Cal and Jackie walk through Cal's weed farm, Cal reminds Jackie to sell and get rid of the heroin as fast as possible and orders him to hand over 50% of the profit from the sale, as it was all grown on his land. As Jackie tries to protest this order, he's informed that a couple of workers who were stealing from the farm have been caught, and together with Cal, he goes to deal with them. There, Jackie and Cal find the thieves tied to a pole and surrounded by the rest of the terrified workers, whimpering in fear. Then, Cal starts making a big speech about being betrayed by those he was trying to give the American dream to, but is shocked speechless by Jackie's unexpected reaction. A few days later, Dwight, Tina, and her kids visit a prestigious private school, which Dwight criticizes as he believes it fails to prepare kids for the real world.
I'm gonna go wait in the car.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Nice meeting you.
Meanwhile, with the license approval still pending, Donnie gives Mitch a tour of the dealership and gives him tips on how to run it. One morning in New York, Nikki and Vince discuss Chicky's revelation about his father, which they consider to be a confession, until the boss interrupts them. Vince then calmly suggests a meeting with Bill and Dwight to work something out and find a solution, instead of rotting in the cycle of violence, and Chicky agrees.
You want peace? You do like my own man.
In Tulsa that afternoon, Dwight goes to the ranch to ask Margaret out on a date to a new fancy Italian restaurant, and she accepts. Then, hoping to gain some intel into his enemy, Dwight shares the problems he's been having with Cal and asks Margaret for information.
Did you come here to ask me out? I don't know if I like this.
Don't get upset about it. It's no big deal. I don't care.
Meanwhile, from New York, Vince calls Goody.
But you know the code. You never say no to a sit-down, period.
Elsewhere in the weed store, as Grace gives Joanne, who is interested in working there, a tour and tells her how everything works, she comes up with a new idea to sell munchies for their customers and makes a plan to bake a small cake and experiment to see if it works. At the ranch, Cal arrives to check on his horses and, upon seeing Dwight, squares off with him.
You're in over your head out here, pal. Not me.
Frustrated, Margaret is forced to threaten the men with her rifle and break them apart. Elsewhere, at the wind farm, Jimmy and Bodie meet with Ahanu and his men to check on how the repairs are coming along, but are soon ambushed by Jackie's farm guards under the order of Cal, who start to destroy everything in sight. Luckily, Jimmy manages to alert Dwight, who was already on his way, of the situation, and everyone rushes to intervene. Once at the wind farm, Dwight and his men attack and overpower the ambushers, and once everything settles, Dwight questions the leader, Hanjin.
Tell me who sent you.
Thresher.
Meanwhile, Cal calls his old partner, Bill, and asks him to buy back his share from Jackie, become his partner, and help him deal with Dwight for good. However, the Mafia boss sternly refuses and hangs up. Later that evening, at the Italian restaurant, as Dwight and Margaret prepare to begin their date, the waiter informs them that Cal has sent them a bottle of champagne on his tab. Annoyed by his continuous interference in their lives, Dwight decides to run his enemy's tab and orders multiple bottles of the finest, most expensive champagne for them.
Bring us 2 bottles, okay?
And gifts them to couples around the restaurant. Well, that backfired Cal. Then, the couple spends the evening getting to know one another and enjoying each other's company, while mischievously laughing about Cal's losses. At the weed shop, Armand notices Bodie's wounds. asks him what happened, and gets an answer that shocks him.
Seems like it had something to do with that guy who hosts the fundraiser that we all went to.
Elsewhere, at the Mitchell's house, Tyson learns that his father's van has broken down again and sympathizes with him, as he has numerous plumbing jobs scheduled for the day. Hence, since Dwight is preparing to go to Atlanta for the sit-down, Tyson calls and asks his boss if he can use the Navigator for the day. Dwight gives his permission but warns Tyson to be on the alert for anything suspicious.
Only on one condition, though. If you guys have the Navigator fumigate.
Excited, Tyson accepts his boss's advice and starts driving Mark around to his jobs. At Cal's weed farm, Jackie is furious to learn of what happened to his guards and scolds Cal for letting his personal feuds interfere with business. But an unfazed Cal tells him to cool off and walks away. Inside the Navigator, Mark is extremely impressed by the fancy car and its amenities, and enjoys every minute of the drive. However, while driving, Tyson notices a suspicious white car following them, and subtly starts tracking its movements. Elsewhere, Dwight stops by the casino to pick up Goody on his way to the airport, and he and Mitch make fun of Goody for his fear of flying. Then, before heading out, Dwight asks Mitch to teach Tina, who's requested to carry a gun to protect herself and her children, about shooting and gun safety as a favor. Meanwhile, at the airport, as Vince and Chicky try to come up with strategies on how to gain the most out of the sit-down in Atlanta, Chicky is detained for carrying a gun, and hence, Vince is forced to head on without him. Back in Tulsa, Joanne comes up with new ideas to ship their products and maximize profits, which impresses Jimmy and Bodie. Meanwhile, Mitch takes Tina target practice and teaches her how to shoot a gun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Louder than I
You see?
Yeah.
Elsewhere, deeply disturbed by Bodie's accusation of Cal and the implications of his association with him, Armand goes to Cal's ranch to speak to him and is horrified.
Everything in life is transactional.
In Atlanta, Dwight and Goody meet with Bill and his right-hand man and impatiently wait for the New York men to arrive.
You make milkshakes?
We do.
You want one?
No, who drinks that shit?
Soon, the intense sit-down begins, with Vince sitting in for Chicky.
Oh, you're a ball buster. $5.75, done and done. Let's shake on it.
While Goody and Bill admire Dwight's negotiation skills, New York remains quiet.
What the f does New York get? The milkshakes.
I wouldn't want to be Vince when Chicky finds out about this deal. Back in Tulsa, Jackie pulls Cal aside and sternly advises him to put an end to his animosity with Dwight, once and for all. In New York, Vince returns and informs Chicky of the details of the sit-down.
What does Dwight give us?
Nothing.
In Tulsa, as the day winds down, Tyson realizes how hard his father works and appreciates all the sacrifices he makes for his family. Then, as he drives Mark back home, he notices the mysterious car still following him and becomes guarded. Elsewhere, in the casino, as soon as Dwight returns, he asks about Tina's progress with the gun shooting.
Beautiful woman. My pleasure.
Saved by the bell, Mitch. Then, Dwight receives a call from Tyson, who convinces him to sell him the Navigator so that he can gift it to his father. In Kansas, Bill takes time out to consider the deal he made with Dwight, starts feeling like he got the wrong end of the stick, and starts to regret it. In Tulsa, at the Mitchell's residence, as everyone prepares for dinner, Tyson announces his gift to Mark and is extremely touched to see how much his father appreciates it and feels utterly proud to finally have something meaningful to give back to the family that gave him everything. The next morning, Mark prepares for work and excitedly proceeds to his car, followed by Tyson, who sees the shady white car speeding by. But before Tyson can warn his father, Mark attempts to get inside the car, and a massive explosion ensues. In the aftermath, the devastated Mitchells wait in the hospital to hear Mark's prognosis and are soon relieved to learn that, despite needing surgery, Mark is out of immediate danger. Then, Dwight and Goody arrive at the hospital to show their support, but are given the cold shoulder by Tyson's mother, Angie.
Now get out! All of you!
Elsewhere, the ATF arrives at the explosion site, inspects the evidence, and comes to their own conclusion.
Car's registered to Dwight Manfredi.
At the hospital, overwhelmed with his dad's injuries and his family turning on him, Tyson flips out.
It was Bevilacqua. What the f? Are y'all serious right now?
Later, as Dwight returns to his mansion and updates Joanne and Tina about the incident, the FBI pays him a visit to ask him who might want to hurt him.
What about it?
Just curious if you might know who'd want you dead.
After discussing it with his men, Dwight decides to test the New York waters and calls Chicky to see if he was behind the bomb. And once he's satisfied that he didn't know anything about it, he asks to speak to Vince directly, to ask him if he thinks Bill could be responsible.
All I know is whoever tried to kill you wasn't us. Unfortunately.
Then, determined to find the culprit driving the white shady car, Dwight goes around town following Tyson's and Mark's route from the day before, pays off people to get access to their surveillance cameras, and finds a partial plate on the suspicious car. He then approaches Paul with the information.
I need you to find a white Prius.
This is absolutely the last time?
Sure, of course it is.
At the hospital, Tyson goes to visit his father, but a devastated Angie closes Mark's room and shuts him out, which breaks the young man's heart. Elsewhere, Chicky calls Bill to find out if he was the one who planted the bomb and informs him that Dwight is suspicious of him.
Anyway, how do I know you didn't do this, Chicky, and you're implicating me and my guys?
Then, Dwight pays Armand a visit at the ranch and asks him how close he is to Cal.
Did you ever tell him about our turbines?
It's possible maybe I inadvertently mentioned it.
Then, hoping to keep Margaret safe, Dwight decides to cool down their relationship. In New York, an increasingly concerned Vince holds a discreet meeting with the other mob family representatives.
You were smart to go this route by not taking matters into your own hands.
In Tulsa, Dwight visits Cal at his weed farm and questions him about the explosion.
The bomb that was meant to kill me, it hurt someone else.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Confused by the accusation, Cal approaches Jackie to find out what he knows and is shocked to realize that he's behind the ordeal. At the casino, seeing how troubled Tyson is, Mitch tries to talk to him.
And this might be your last chance to get out of this life.
In Kansas, troubled by the rumor that Dwight is suspecting him of the explosion and hoping to figure out how to proceed, Bill gathers his men, who all vote for violent intervention.
Take out him and the black kid, that's key also.
In Tulsa, Tyson goes to the hospital to apologize to his sleeping father and promises to make it up to him. Elsewhere, Jackie heeds Cal's earlier warning about Dwight getting closer and brings the white car and Hanjin to the farm and plans how to proceed.
What about your friend Hanjin? What if Manfredi talks to him?
Later, at the hospital, Mark wakes up, vaguely remembers Tyson's words about taking revenge, and calls Dwight to ask him to stop his son. Dwight then complies and calls the conflicted Tyson, who happens to be parked at Bill's estate's gate contemplating his next move. As Dwight orders Tyson to stand down, one of Bill's partners, Vic, notices the suspicious car parked at the gate and opens fire, which forces Tyson to fire back and injure the man. Later, a terrified Tyson reports to Dwight, Goody, and Mitch at the casino.
You're part of a family, even when you're wrong, Tyson.
Aw, this is terrifyingly wholesome. Elsewhere, while an enraged Bill plans a retaliation with his men, Chicky calls him.
In my f***ing driveway, my f***ing house again, Chicky!
Meanwhile, with problems from each side, Armand starts to spiral, meets Clara, and, after detailing his plan to go to the FBI to reveal everything in exchange for witness protection, asks her to come along with him, but is devastated to hear that she wants nothing to do with him. Elsewhere, at the mansion, after considering everything that's happening, Dwight asks Tina to go back to New York with her kids.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't think this would happen.
But you still would hate me.
I love you. That's what makes this so hard.
At the ranch, a frustrated, drunk Armand lashes out at Spencer until Margaret interferes.
Get your shit and get out of here. Get off my property before I have you fucking thrown out.
The next day, while Dwight is out, Tina packs up and leaves Tulsa with her kids, while Joanne stays behind, hoping to provide a support system for her brother. Meanwhile, at the weed shop, Dwight gathers Bodie and the staff, informs them of the current situation, and strategizes.
Attempt by who?
The less we know, the better.
In New York, Chicky casually shares Bill's plans to kill Dwight.
Bevelak was making a move on Dwight. That a good thing or a bad thing?
Then, as soon as Chicky steps out, Vince shares his thoughts with the rest and is surprised to learn that they are all on the same page.
Everybody knows he's a psycho to rumors about Pete. I mean, with the other families. We whack him.
In Tulsa, FBI agents pay Dwight a visit at the casino.
Bill Bevilacqua, now that's a mouthful.
You've been warned.
Appreciate it.
Elsewhere, a desperate Armand goes to Cal, informs him that Dwight has figured out that he gave him information and begs him for help. However, Cal embarrasses Armand and throws him out. Armand then takes time out to call his young son and leaves a loving message of farewell along with a heartfelt apology. Later, at Cal's weed farm, Cal and Jackie go around inspecting the farm until a shocking twist of events.
The business will be transferred to my name for the sum of $1,000.
In New York, Vince invites Fat Jimmy, the boss of one of the mob families, and prepares to speak to Chicky.
I don't know what I think, but I don't like it.
Relax, Chicky. Take a seat.
Enraged, Chicken spits at the group and storms out. At least they didn't drown you in your own filth to take your position, Chicky. In Tulsa, while Jimmy and Bodie close up the weed shop and leave, they are ambushed by Bill's men, and Jimmy is killed. When the news reaches him, Dwight leaves Goody to guard the casino and rushes to the scene with Mitch and Tyson. In Kansas, a terrified, frantic Cal visits Bill at his ranch and asks him to help him stop Jackie and his men for good.
I'm in a fucking war right now because of you.
In Tulsa at the casino, a desperate Armand holds Goody at gunpoint and robs a bag full of cash from the back room. The Native American tribe holds a traditional funeral for Jimmy, which Dwight and all of his men attend. Afterwards, Medhot informs Dwight that Jimmy had respected him as a leader and, on behalf of the community, pledges his support in the looming war. On the ride back, Bodie shares that he's having survivor's guilt.
Hey, Bodie, he accepted. He was a grown man.
With a stolen $500,000, Armand starts driving to Mexico, but feels incredibly conflicted and returns at the last moment. Meanwhile, an angry Dwight sends his men to search for Armand. In New York, Vince calls Chicky to discuss a way forward.
Get Dwight back into the fold.
You guys are ready to take care of that at the sit-down?
In Kansas, Bill meets with his partners to discuss the latest developments and how to handle the tension with Dwight.
Maybe I call a truce.
Isn't it a little too late for that, Bill? In Tulsa, Cal rushes to the ranch to inform Margaret that Jackie has gone rogue and reminds her that her business will also be affected.
Including my ranch?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Margaret.
You.
Then, a frantic Margaret rushes to the casino and, after explaining that Cal and Jackie own 49% of her ranch and Jackie is threatening to take it all, begs Dwight to agree to the sit-down. In New York, as ordered, Chicky tries to buy plane tickets to head to Tulsa, but is informed that, due to his recent incident, he's on the no-fly list. In Tulsa, Dwight, Cal, and Bill have a sit-down to discuss their common psychopathic enemy, Jackie.
It was Ming.
Ming, your partner.
Meanwhile, a desperate Armand approaches Jackie, shares all his troubles, and asks for help.
Taking them both out was simple. I know every inch of that place.
That night, Armand, who's familiar with the ranch setup, leads Jackie and his men to the compound, and they proceed inside. However, just as they get into the house, they are ambushed and massacred by the Indians, Bill, Dwight, and their men, who have been lying in wait. Then, later, Dwight explains to the group that Armand had come to see him earlier and devised this plan.
Say it again.
It's never too late.
Now we're gonna talk, and you're gonna make her right.
Bigfoot buries Jackie in the stables, and everything falls silent as peace is restored in the society. Elsewhere, Chicky takes the train and travels to Tulsa. Later, once everything settles and the dust calms down, Dwight returns to bed with Margaret. A couple of days later, Dwight visits Cal's 18,000-acre weed farm.
I'm not here to negotiate. I'm taking all of this.
Without much resistance, Cal accepts the deal and walks away. Elsewhere, Mitch finalizes the deal and buys Donnie's car dealership.
I never once thought I'd sell 352 cars in one day.
Unexpectedly, Vince calls Dwight to update him on the new leadership change in the Invernizzi family and gives him a heads up about Chicky and his journey to Tulsa.
Whatever happens, hope together we can move forward.
A few days later, once everything calms down, Bill visits Dwight at his casino and asks to discuss business.
What's my deal?
Oh, you want to cut yourself in?
Elsewhere, Chicky arrives in Tulsa, rushes to the weed shop, demands to speak to Dwight, and terrifies everyone. Hearing this, Dwight abandons his responsibilities and rushes over to the shop.
What are you doing here?
I'm here to make amends. It's my father's idea to send you out here, and it was a terrible mistake.
Meanwhile, at the ranch, Armand meets Spencer and apologizes to her. Then, after promising he will sober up, he also apologizes to Margate, who soon accepts him back into the fold. In Kansas City, Chicky meets with Bill and tries to discuss how to keep a leash on Dwight.
What is it with you and this guy?
He's the root of all my problems.
Then, as Bodie prepares to work at the weed farm, Joanne offers that she can cover his position at the shop, and he agrees. Meanwhile, Chicky and Bill visit Dwight at the casino, where Chicky proposes a business expansion plan.
What do you think?
Don't worry about him. He came up with the idea. He likes it. Everybody wins.
In the shocking aftermath, Dwight stands over the body of the man that he saw grow up and takes a moment thinking it didn't have to be like this, and justifies it as he remembers Chicky had tried to kill him every single chance he got. Dazed in thought, Dwight orders Bigfoot to clean up and moves on. That evening, Once everything is taken care of, Dwight and his men sit back and relax at the casino and watch Mitch's advertisement for his new car dealership. After everyone congratulates their friend for his feat, Dwight gives a speech.
Legit, and you do not have to look over your shoulder anymore.
After all is said and done, Dwight manages and joyously watches on as the group cheerfully interacts and is happy. However, this peaceful bliss never lasts long, and while Margaret and Dwight sleep in Margaret's bed, masked men come out of nowhere and abduct Dwight.
You work for us now.
Do well for you.
Let's get down to business.
What size area do you need the explosion to encompass?
Jeremiah Dunmire.
Dunmire.
When's you gonna be ready?
It'll be ready when it's ready. I'll call you.
After a few minutes of driving, Dwight finds himself in a cold interrogation room and soon meets FBI agent John Musso, who reveals that Ripple was his informant on the Invernizzi family and snaps at him for ruining years of a well-built case by killing him. Confused as to why he's being lectured about a past crime he's already paid for, in the middle of the night, Dwight demands to know what's going on and is shocked to learn that the agent knows every detail of his operation in Tulsa, including all the murders, from the biker gangs to Chickie. Cornered, Dwight tries to process everything, but soon his predicament gets worse.
You would have no problem doing these things for us.
As a shocked Dwight tries to assess the severity of the situation in his mind, the agent makes his stance clear.
So when I call, you answer. Fast.
A couple of hours later, a distressed Dwight is released, and as he's driven back home, he's lost in thought, thinking about his new family and the looming danger coming to them because of him. Later, Dwight goes to the ranch and, hoping to spare Margaret from being caught in the crossfire, he breaks up with her and storms off. Then, before he can even get a moment to himself to work through everything, Dwight receives a call from Quiet Ray, regarded as bosses of bosses in New York, who asks to have a sit-down with him. Despite his hectic schedule in life, Dwight agrees to the meeting out of respect and flies to New York with Goody, Bigfoot, and Joanne. There, Dwight meets Ray, who shares his sympathies for the way he was treated by the Invernizzi family, whom he sacrificed years of his life for, asks him to return to New York, and promises to give him his own territory and family.
Ray, I built something. Something good, strong, something I'm proud of.
It's all a little too late now, Quiet Ray. In Tulsa one morning in the auto shop, Mitch is surprised to see his ex-girlfriend, Cleo Montague, and warmly greets her. Then, as the duo catches up, Cleo shares that her father, Theodore, and his renowned distillery are going under, and she is back in town to help him sell it so that he can pay off his debts. Cleo then shares her frustration that, despite her best efforts to get her dad the best deal, he has agreed to sell the distillery to a local rival named Jeremiah Dunmire, who has twisted Theodore's arm and gotten a gentleman's agreement. After hanging out for a few minutes, Cleo gives Mitch a bottle of her father's bourbon and leaves. Meanwhile, Dwight returns to Tulsa and heads straight to the casino to get his mind off things. Moments later, Margaret joins him at his table and assures him that she wants to continue seeing him, despite the risks. Later, Mitch meets Dwight at the casino, and after revealing how much he hates his job at the car dealership, he shares about the bankrupt legendary distillery. Then, to make sure Dwight understands the quality, Mitch gives him a taste of the bourbon, which impresses the general. Hence, Dwight gets on board with Mitch's idea of buying the distillery. Later, Dwight orders Bodie to deliver some cash to Bill's men with Grace and Tyson. BPDHI reluctantly agrees, muttering to himself and questioning why they are still doing business with Jimmy's killers. The next day, accepting Chloe's invitation, Mitch heads to a yard sale at the Montague estate with Dwight, Goody, and Bigfoot. There, Dwight finds his way inside, meets Theodore in his office, and makes an offer to pay twice as much as the Dunmires for the distillery. However, Theodore reveals that he had already given Jeremiah a binding handshake and hence can't renege on the deal. Outside, Cole confronts Mitch.
Let's cut the shit, all right.
How easy, hero. I just come to deliver a message.
Elsewhere, on the road, with still miles left to the meeting spot, Bodie's electric car runs out of power, and the trio is forced to stop. After renegotiating the location, with the help of Dwight, Bill sends his men to where the trio is so that they can pick up the cash. Moments later, as soon as the men arrive, Bodie recognizes one of them to be Art, the man who killed Jimmy, and his blood starts to boil. While he tries to control his anger, the men take the duffel bag, but are shocked to realize that instead of wads of cash, it's filled with Bodie's books. As the men start lashing out, Bodie explains that he had mistakenly brought the wrong bag and soon drives with Art to the weed shop to get the right one.
Let's go, funny man. Get this fucking over with.
Say it.
Later, while Dwight hangs out with Joanne and Margaret at the mansion, an angry Bill calls to complain about Bodie's actions.
He's grieving, bro.
He's what? What the does that have to do with pulling a pistol on my man?
The next day, Dwight meets with Theodore to convince him to sell the distillery to him.
Dunmire will react when I partner with someone. Their enemy is my enemy.
Later, John calls Dwight and gives him a heads up.
Been spending a lot of time with Montague lately. You want to tell me about that?
Meanwhile, having heard of Theodore's agreement with Dwight, Jeremiah goes to talk to his old rival at his mansion.
It was a bad deal, Jeremiah. I got a better offer.
Moments after Jeremiah leaves, Cole and his men trap Theodore inside the mansion and burn the house to the ground. In the aftermath, Dwight and his men go out to the burned-down mansion, are shocked by the extent of the damage, and wonder what kind of psychopath can sentence a man to burn to death. Later at the funeral reception, a frustrated Goody informs Dwight that Armand has been oversharing in his AA meetings and has now disappeared. Dwight calms Goody down and advises him to keep searching for him. Moments later, the Dunmires arrive and Jeremiah faces off with Dwight.
It hurts just to burn your finger. Imagine your whole body.
Then, Dwight flatly declines Jeremiah's offer to give him 3 times what he paid for the distillery. On the other side of the room, seeing Cole and knowing that he had a hand in her father's death, Cleo lashes out at him until Mitch intervenes. Later, at home, Dwight and Joanne, who have spent hours going through the distillery's books, try to figure out why a distillery with such a quality product hadn't turned a profit in a decade and went bankrupt, to no avail.
And we build our own distillery.
No, there's no way.
That afternoon, Dwight and his men go to the Montagues' burned estate and meet Cleo.
Cleo, can I ask you to, dig down memory-wise?
Cleo leads the group to a crypt filled with 50-year-old vintage bourbon, which is worth $150 million, and this impresses everyone. She then leads them to the old, broken-down distillery and explains that Jeremiah had sabotaged their business by threatening all the local distributors not to distribute their product, and adds that the crooked man has the whole town in his pocket, from officials to local thugs. Elsewhere, Goody attends the AA meeting but fails to locate Armand. Meanwhile, as per his team's suggestion, Tyson asks his dad to restore the bottling system in the distillery, but fails to convince him.
I think you should do it. Means you can keep an eye on it.
Yes, ma'am.
Then, Dwight, Mitch, and Bigfoot approach a local distributor named Walden.
My shelves are full, top and bottom.
Bigfoot, come here. You still like that psychology stuff? I do. Give it a shot.
That evening, Cole visits Cleo at the distillery and tries to profess his feelings for her and proposes that they can ride off into the sunset once the current head of the family passes on. When this fails to impress her, Cole changes his tone, threatens to take everything from her, and storms off. The next day, Bill and his men arrive at the distillery, where Bill lashes out at Dwight.
Trust you? I trust you like I trust a rattlesnake.
A snake?
Dwight dismisses this, and together with Joanne, attempts to negotiate a deal.
It's too much.
You're pushing it.
Oh, yeah?
Bill walks away frustrated, trying to consider all of his options, and is relieved to receive a call from Vince, who's now working in a pizza parlor, and vents his frustration. Then, after hearing the financial woes of the Inverneses, Bill promises to keep him apprised of any business opportunities. Moments later, following his wife's suggestion, Mark arrives at the distillery to help out. On the other side of the building, despite agreeing to a truce with Ray, Bodie shares his plans of mirroring Ray's phone and cyber spying on him with Grace. Then, after Mark fixes the bottling system, the group spends the rest of the day repairing, cleaning, and preparing the distillery, finally getting it up and running. They then start bottling the 50-year-old rare bourbon. Later, Dwight invites Cal to the distillery.
I'm running because I want to help the good people of Oklahoma.
From a criminal to running for governor? Who could have predicted that? In the wee hours of the night, in Mitch's house, where Cleo is staying, Cole and his men ambush the couple. Luckily, despite the surprise attack, Mitch manages to fight them off with the help of Cleo. Meanwhile, Jeremiah visits Dwight at the casino.
Why don't we have a seat so I can tell you all the reasons I dislike you?
Later that night, as Spencer completes her bartending shift and leaves the casino, she's attacked by a drunk man. Seeing this from afar, Cole jumps in and rescues her, and Spencer profusely thanks him. The next morning, sensing the growing tension around them, Dwight gathers his men for a pep talk.
We gotta know what the enemy is capable of. You have to know the enemy.
Then, before Dwight can settle into work, he gets a call from John.
You an address. Go to it. I'll have a car pick you up there.
With Joanne at the helm, Dwight leaves the distillery, follows the orders, finds a self-driving car waiting for him, and has an uncomfortable ride on his way to meet John. Meanwhile, at the distillery, Tyson insists on doing some recon on Cole and is joined by a reluctant Grace and Bodie as he sets out. Meanwhile, Dwight and John start the long drive to Texas, discussing the mission of the trip.
I got files on everyone in your crew.
Then, as John continues speeding, the duo is stopped by a local police officer, and Dwight uses his charm to avoid a ticket. In Tulsa, Tyson, Grace, and Bodie follow Cole around town and are shocked to find him hosting a senior bingo game. Elsewhere, at the distillery, Clara comes and demands to speak to Dwight.
Dwight didn't do anything. We've been looking for him, too.
Yeah, I bet you have.
In Texas, Dwight introduces himself to Dexter.
Learn who I am. Look up Dwight and Freddy.
At the bingo hall, Goody joins the trio, quickly figures out that Cole is running a scam, and devises a plan.
Bingo!
Elsewhere, as John drives Dwight away from Dexter's shop, Dwight decides to learn more about the situation.
Why is this guy so important to you?
This person.
In Tulsa, Mitch and Cleo spend the day driving around. And suddenly, against Mitch's advice, Cleo speeds to the Dunn-Myers estate and vandalizes the lawn.
I said stop!
Take this duly emotional young lady home.
Elsewhere, after taking their winnings, the group goes to a strip club to enjoy themselves, and moments later, against his friend's advice, Tyson goes to a private room with a stripper named Serenity. However, after a few minutes, the duo is ambushed by Cole and held at gunpoint. Ugh! Tyson's becoming a liability now. Meanwhile, angered by her impulsive actions, Mitch warns Cleo.
Well, then you gotta stand down and bide your time.
Elsewhere, Tyson is severely beaten by Cole's men, but refuses to give up the location of the vintage bourbon. As the horrors increase, Tyson assures himself that he will rather die than betray his family, until Cole brings out a tied-up Serenity and threatens to shoot her. Hoping to rescue the girl, Tyson gives up the location, and with the help of his men, Cole empties out the warehouse. Later, Goody informs Dwight of the bad news. The next morning, Dwight gathers everyone at the distillery and scolds them for their failure to follow his orders and watch out for one another. Moments later, hoping to transport the liquor, Bill and his men arrive at the distillery, and Bill pulls Dwight aside and asks him about the whereabouts of Armand and wonders if he is in witness protection. Unfazed by the speculation, Dwight assures Bill he's got nothing to worry about. Why is Dwight the only one not concerned about Armand's disappearance? Then, Dwight informs Bill about the robbery.
$150 million, where were you?
I can't tell you that right now.
Later, a guilt-ridden Tyson goes to his apartment and finds Mark, who has been informed of the incident, waiting for him. Before Tyson can even explain himself, Mark scolds him for his poor decision-making, but soon offers him his help to make everything right. Elsewhere, after seeing the truck that transported the stolen liquor on the security footage, Dwight and Bill find the trucker's house, and Bill pays him a visit. However, before he can get any valuable information, Bill is forced to kill him in self-defense. In New York, Vince visits Quiet Ray.
I heard that Dwight's crew is undisciplined because they're moving into booze.
In Tulsa, following Dwight's request to follow Cal's campaign closely, Margaret meets Cal. She then convinces Cal to sell her back his share of her ranch at a discount in exchange for her help with his campaign and promises to get him elected.
Let me help you.
What does Dwight get out of this?
At the distillery, Bodie hacks into the Dunn-Meyer website, messes up orders, and creates chaos. Then, he and Grace design an AI influencer, give him a strong media presence, and start designing an ad for the vintage bourbon.
I'm sorry, does he have 6 fingers?
Meanwhile, Cole shares the cyber attack with his father, who, in turn, blames him for hiring an incompetent cybersecurity team and dismisses him. Desperate to get his father's recognition, Cole promises to make everything right. At the casino, after an exhausting day of recon, Mitch meets with Cleo.
I don't want you getting killed in the process, Mitch.
She's the woman that's whipping donuts around Dunn-Meyer's lawn.
Meanwhile, at the casino, while Margaret informs Dwight about her deal with Cal, Dwight receives a call from Tyson, who reveals that Serenity is part of Cole's group and the robbery. and that he and his father have tracked her to the Dunmire warehouse, where the vintage liquor is kept.
No, I'm already knowing how this gonna pan out. I don't want to make the same mistake twice.
Dwight's team and Bill rush to the warehouse, where they manage to hold Cole hostage and force Jeremiah to give them the bourbon in exchange for his son's safe return. They then drive away with the liquor. Did Jeremiah hesitate? Does he value the bourbon more than Cole? Later, while Bill drives home, he receives a call from Quiet Ray. A couple of days later, on the day of the vintage bourbon launch, Dwight's team works hard preparing the distillery and preparing to welcome notable people in the liquor industry. Elsewhere, Bill lashes out at Vince over the phone.
He's a curious man.
Quiet Ray should call Dwight. Okay? That's the right thing to do.
Hoping to crush his rival's progress once and for all, Jeremiah invites Attorney General Sackrider and reminds him of how much he owes him.
I need something accomplished.
Tell me.
Meanwhile, an excited Dwight arrives at the distillery and appreciates all the preparation for the launch party. However, moments later, Bill arrives, relays his conversation with Quiet Ray, and asks Dwight to take action. However, Dwight shrugs everything off as if he had been expecting it and promises to deal with the matter after the all-important launch. Then, despite wanting to postpone, Dwight is forced to see Dexter, who asks for a meeting and heads to the casino. There, Dwight reluctantly reveals that his target is Jeremiah and pays the advance before Dexter leaves, promising to inform him once everything is ready. Later, at the distillery, as the party starts, on the Attorney General's orders, a health inspector named Leary arrives, demands to do a full inspection, and goes into the barrel room.
Will be reported to.
Meanwhile, at the party, Chloe gives a speech on behalf of her family and invites all the guests to enjoy the high-quality bourbon. Then, as the guests start to enjoy themselves, Dwight returns and is deeply warmed to see the great turnout. But before he can fully enjoy the success of the night, the party is ambushed by frustrated Dunmires, who break and destroy everything, including one of the barrels containing the vintage bourbon. Seeing this side of Cole, Spencer, who has started dating him, becomes furious and starts to doubt her relationship. Dwight and his crew are absolutely gutted by the incident and are even more worried that it will end up tarnishing their brand's reputation.
Everyone should go home, get some sleep.
Then, Dwight heads home, hoping to get some time to himself to think over everything and find a possible solution. And as he stays up into the late hours of the night doing so, he's surprised to get a visit from Bill, who doesn't like some of Dwight's shady movements of the day.
What are you saying? I'm a rat? Know what you're saying?
Then, Bill storms out and starts driving home. However, a few minutes later, he's ambushed and kidnapped by masked gunmen. The next morning, having overheard her brother's conversation with Bill, Joanne asks what's going on.
He thinks that I'm ratting him out to the feds.
At the distillery, as planned, Bodie alerts the police to Leary's body in the barrel room, hoping the death will be ruled a workplace accident.
If it's any consolation, it's all for a good cause.
Later, while the distillery is sealed off pending the results of the investigation, Dwight gathers his crew and announces that they should steal the locked-up cases of bourbon and use his connection to sell them off, and details that once the saga is over, they will work towards distributing at a national level. Then, Goody alerts Dwight that Bill is missing.
Wife said when he called, he was headed to you.
Then, sure, he had something to do with Bill's disappearance. Dwight calls Quiet Ray.
Vacation is recommended.
Where?
A place we both know.
Elsewhere, Dwight's crew steals cases of bourbon, divided into two teams of two, Grace and Bodie, and Mitch and Cleo, and starts driving it across state borders for a drop-off. At the Dunmire's estate, Jeremiah meets with the Attorney General and gives him a piece of his mind.
We managed to put a GPS tracker on the outside of his vehicle last night.
Then, Jeremiah gives Cole an order.
If you want to make me proud, then you gotta finish this once and for all.
Then, using the tracking device, the Attorney General put on Dwight's car. Cole tracks Dwight and sends his men after him. Elsewhere, Bill finds himself in an empty, cold room. On their journey to Arkansas, Dwight and Tyson notice Cole's men following them and set them up, while Cole helplessly watches from afar.
Laying down on the job, pal. You'll never get a raise like that.
Elsewhere, Mitch and Cleo are stopped by a dirty cop. Desperate to give his father some good news, Cole calls Jeremiah and tells him his feat with the couple.
You need to find Manfredi and end him.
Ugh! Can Cole ever do right by his father? In Arkansas, Dwight, Tyson, and Bigfoot check into their room and prepare for the sit-down.
So where the meeting at?
Downstairs.
Elsewhere, despite being handcuffed, Mitch and Cleo attack and overpower the police, free themselves, and flee. In Arkansas, Dwight and Quiet Ray meet, and just as they begin their discussion, Dwight is annoyed to see Vince and learns that he now works for Quiet Ray. Dwight brushes this aside and tries to talk to the boss about Bill, but Quiet Ray is annoyed to be accused of the kidnapping, flips out, and demands 80% of Dwight's liquor profits. Outraged, Dwight begins to challenge Quiet Ray, but is soon interrupted by Bigfoot, who spots Cole and his men preparing to shoot and screams for everyone to get down, while he, Tyson, and Quiet Ray's men respond and neutralize the threat. Quiet Ray then realizes what's happening and accuses Dwight of trying to kill him. Later, on his way back from the failed sit-down,
They found Armin. Hung himself in some flop house.
Dwight receives shocking news from Goody. The next morning, an angry Quiet Ray calls Dwight.
What do you want from me anyway?
I want to finish the business we started.
Dwight manages to convince the boss that the hit was meant for him, puts off their negotiations, and boldly asks Quiet Ray for help.
All right. I'll help you.
Later, Dwight visits the Attorney General in his office.
To restore my sister's liquor license.
It's time for you to leave, sir.
Disappointed by the failed meeting, Dwight calls Margaret and asks for her help. Hence, Margaret goes out to lunch with Sackrider's wife, Anna, and learns the Attorney General's weaknesses. Elsewhere, Spencer reluctantly meets with Cole and scolds him for putting her in a difficult position with her team by destroying the distillery. Cole admits that his need for his father's approval always gets him to do the wrong things, apologizes, and shares that he doesn't want to lose her. At the casino, Tyson tries to come up with ways to become an earner, and with Goody's and Spencer's help, devises a plan to pose as cops and rob frat houses of drugs and sell them elsewhere at a profit. Hence, the trio goes to Spencer's college, scopes out a frat house, and Goody and Tyson pose as officers and confiscate all of their drugs and money.
Listen up, face. You don't want to end up in jail.
Elsewhere, Dwight and Margaret convince Cal to ask the Attorney General to change sides and endorse him in his campaign, and suggest he should meet him at the casino, where the real people of Oklahoma hang out, as opposed to fancy restaurants reserved only for the rich and famous. Then, as Dwight and his team monitor them on the security cameras in the back room, Cal and Sackrider meet and begin their discussions. A few minutes later, Grace offers the men some poker chips on the house, which tempts the Attorney General to try his luck. Sackrider wins the first few rounds, which excites him to no end. However, soon, Grace switches the dice to make sure he ends up in debt to the house, and offers him $100 grand in line of credit. Sackrider accepts this, but soon loses it all and panics. Happy that it all worked out exactly how he planned it, Dwight swoops in and offers to forgive the debt in exchange for Joanne's liquor license being restored, and a desperate Sackrider accepts the deal. At the Dunmyers estate, Jeremiah strengthens his toxic stronghold over Cole.
Your mama hit you on the head when you were growing up, or is there something else going wrong?
Who says that to anyone, let alone their own child? The next day, after hearing about Joanne's liquor license, an angry Jeremiah storms into Sackrider's office.
Dwight Manfredi has a code that you lack.
Jeremiah is soon arrested and thrown in jail. The next morning, Dwight and his team rush to the distillery and joyfully watch as the seal is officially removed and quickly resume operations. Elsewhere, Cole picks his father up from jail and drives him home. But once there, they are confused to see Dexter waiting for them.
I was sent to kill you.
And who, pray tell, sent you to do that?
Jeremiah then escorts Dexter into his office.
And you were gonna kill me, even though our paths had never crossed.
As they say, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Meanwhile, at a hotel, Margaret organizes a campaign launch event for Cal and goes around overseeing the preparations and encourages Cal, who's nervous about his speech, to believe in himself. However, unbeknownst to anyone, Dexter discreetly plants the bomb inside the hotel hall and quickly sneaks back out. Later, Dexter calls Dwight.
How about if I pick the time and place? Is that okay?
Dwight then calls John and updates him.
This has to be flawless.
It will be.
Elsewhere, looking for a venue to throw a party and sell their products, Tyson and Spencer approach Bodie.
We gonna need a venue, man. We need a venue.
Meanwhile, Dwight meets with John and informs him that he has figured out that he's the one who imprisoned Bill and tries to free his partner. However, John explains that Bill will ruin his operation and decides to keep him in custody until everything is finished. Then, as John and Dwight go to the meeting spot, Dwight offers to take justice into his own hands and give Dexter what he deserves for all his brutal crimes. But despite being swayed, John refuses and decides to do things by the book. Once there, the duo prepares to start the operation.
You guys inside? Arrived 15 minutes ago.
Dwight enters the warehouse cautiously and finds Dexter waiting for him with a gun. Soon, Mitch and Bigfoot appear out of nowhere, overpower the terrorist, and the trio kidnaps and takes him to the crypt. Elsewhere, at the hotel, acknowledging all of Margaret's help and efforts and hoping he will win the election, Cal invites her to join his administration. Later, at the weed shop, Spencer and Tyson throw a successful party and manage to go through their ecstasy inventory quickly. Then, as they enjoy their success, Cole rushes in and tells Spencer about the bomb at the hotel. At the crypt, Dwight forces Dexter to confess to all of his crimes and name his associates on tape. And just as he's about to let him be, he receives a call from Tyson informing him about the bomb. A frantic Dwight calls John.
Did you put a bomb at the Grand Hotel?
Dwight then locks Dexter in a casket and, with 10 minutes left on the clock, speeds off to the hotel with Mitch and Bigfoot. On the drive, hoping to warn them, Dwight tries to call both Margaret and Cal, but is frustrated when he fails to get through. John and the bomb squad also rush to the scene, and together with Dwight and his men, evacuate everyone from the hotel. Then, only seconds later, the bomb explodes and destroys everything. In the aftermath, John approaches Dwight.
Maybe tomorrow. It's been a long night.
The audacity of Agent John Musso. In New York, Quiet Ray meets with an assassin named Russell Lee.
You know Tulsa?
Yeah, what about it?
You know Dwight Manfredi?
In Tulsa, John visits Dwight the next morning and demands to have Dexter's confession tape.
I want a federal liquor license.
Are you serious?
In town, following the restoration of Joanne's license, Dwight makes deals with the local distributors. Soon, the Montague bourbon starts to fly off the shelf, while the Dunmeyers lose their deals and their product is returned. One afternoon at the casino, Tyson proudly kicks up money to Dwight from his and Spencer's lucrative new business. Moments later, Russell walks into the casino, warmly greets Dwight, and catches up with him.
Are you gonna make me ask you? Why are you in Tulsa?
Elsewhere, at the weed shop, Tyson asks for help in getting more ecstasy from Bodie, who agrees to make it for him. Later, Russell receives a call from Quiet Ray demanding to hear a progress report on the mission, but Russell boldly declines the job. At the Dunmeyers' estate, shocked by what he hears, Cole informs his father that their brand is being dropped by local distributors. Hearing this, Jeremiah freaks out and lashes out at his son. Meanwhile, at the casino, Mitch shares intel with Dwight.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. Staying at the Masters Inn off Route 44.
In the wee hours of the night, while Dwight stays up at his mansion thinking about everything, Russell visits him, and the duo hangs out.
Let's go have a little meet and greet.
That's the Lee I know.
Dwight and Russell then head to the motel, surveil it for a couple of hours, and murder the two men they believe were sent to assassinate them. On the other side of town, Tyson and Spencer crash a party and start selling their products until they are caught by the security and are thrown out. Elsewhere, at the distillery, while working late, Joanne is kidnapped by Jeremiah's men. The men drive Joanne to the Dunmeyers' estate where she meets Jeremiah, who offers her a deal.
You sign the distillery over to me, and all will be forgiven.
Elsewhere, at Dwight's mansion, Dwight and Margaret wake up early. And as they each prepare for their day, they discuss how the polls have changed for Cal since the explosion. Then, after escorting Margaret out, Dwight heads in to wake Joanne up, but is shocked to see that she's nowhere to be found. Soon, the crew finds out about Joanne's disappearance and frantically searches for her everywhere, to no avail. A couple of hours later, Dwight gets a call from Jeremiah.
Blood or bourbon, Mr. Manfredi?
What's more important to you?
Then, after hanging up the phone, Jeremiah pressures Joanne.
That was your brother that created the situation that caused Adaman.
At the Dunmeyers' estate, Cole attempts to speak to his father, but is held off by Jeremiah's men, who tell him that he's in an important meeting. Then, he waits around until Jeremiah leaves his office, heads inside, is shocked to see a tied-up Joanne, and discreetly offers her some water. Then, knowing how stubborn his father could be and desperate to end the violence for good, Cole suggests to Joanne that it would be better if Dwight just left the liquor business to them and focused on his other business, but soon learns that, after everything that already transpired, that's just wishful thinking. Then, Cole goes to the weed shop and, with the help of Spencer, convinces the crew to arrange a meeting with Dwight. Meanwhile, Mitch contacts an old acquaintance who supplies the team with various untraceable weapons for the looming war. Later that evening, Russell arrives at the casino, learns the situation, and vows his alliance and support to his old friend. Then, as the men and Grace sit around a table discussing possible solutions, to the shock of everyone, Spencer escorts Cole in.
Put the gun down, put the gun down.
What do you mean, put it away? This fucker tried to kill me.
Finally, Cole's standing up for himself. Judging the situation from a neutral standpoint, Russell announces that Cole seems genuine enough in his intention to atone for everything and convinces Dwight to give him a shot.
And Margaret in the hotel explosion. He was the one that warned us.
Then, the crew spends the next few hours strategizing their move, and as they prepare to head out, Dwight approaches Goody.
I need you to stick around. Something happens to me. Who's gonna run this joint?
There, Dwight and his crew throw a surprise attack, and, using grenades, light up the estate like a Christmas tree. Then, using the ensuing chaos, the crew enters the mansion, and, after killing all the guards, frees Joanne. Then, after ordering everyone to head back to the car, Dwight chases Jeremiah around the premises, catches him, and brutally beats him up. Dwight then ties Jeremiah up and, just like Jeremiah had done to Theodore, burns him alive. Then, Dwight and his crew gather around at the casino and celebrate their feat over a few drinks. Russell thanks everyone for their hospitality and acknowledges Dwight for everything he's done for him, and sets off to his hometown, New Orleans. Then, as Mitch enjoys himself with Cleo, Dwight asks him to grace them with a song, and he takes to the stage. Then, as the crew relaxes to the tunes, Dwight sees John arrive and goes to meet him.
That is a federal basic permit label.
Finally, feeling at peace, Dwight returns to his table and continues to enjoy the night with Margaret and his crew.